Hey, mama. So, does your child get into trouble in class? Are trips to the principal's office common but unproductive? If so, you might be curious about new ways to address your child's behavior, and it may be time to ask the school to conduct a functional assessment, also known as a functional behavioral assessment or an FBA. So, what is a functional assessment? A functional assessment is an approach to figuring out why your child acts a certain way. It uses a variety of techniques to understand what's behind inappropriate behaviors. And this includes looking at non-academic factors that might be contributing to your child's frustration with learning. So knowing what's behind an appropriate behavior can help you and the school find ways to change that behavior. And so the basic idea behind this approach is that your child's behavior serves a purpose. And whether they're aware of it or not, they act a certain way to get a desired outcome or goal. For example, perhaps your child has a hard time showing his work on math problems. In math class, they get angry, they crumple up paper, and they're disrupted, and they're sent to the principal's office. So the behavior isn't appropriate, but it serves its purpose. Your child managed to avoid doing the work that was frustrating them. They may not know that was the goal, but they found a way to deal with the math that was causing them stress. And so a key part of the functional assessment is figuring out what triggers certain behaviors in your child at home, in school, and with friends or classmates. Sometimes parents and teachers assume they know what's causing a child's behavior because they've seen other children do similar things, but it's important to remember that the causes for the same behavior can vary widely among children. And so, what's the difference between a functional assessment versus a comprehensive evaluation? Really briefly, a functional assessment has a narrower focus than a comprehensive assessment. It focuses on the why, the how, when, and what of your child's behavior. On the other hand, a comprehensive evaluation is a process that's used to see if your child's eligible for special education services. And so it looks at all aspects of your child's learning, and if behavior is a concern, a functional assessment may be a part of the comprehensive evaluation process. And so who is your team throughout this functional assessment process? As we know, assessment is a team effort. And so each team member will see your child from a different perspective. Everyone works together to figure out what's going on with your child's behavior. So this assessment team, it varies from school to school. It typically includes a person with specialized training, such as a school psychologist or a behavioral specialist, and that professional helps to gather information. They interview people who know and work with your child, and they will also speak with your child and do some screenings or some assessments. And so a functional assessment might include general education teachers, special education teachers, professionals who work with your child, like counselors, speech therapists, for example, school administrators, parents, and or caregivers, and the child. And so although they're not part of the team, your child's peers could also shed light on your child's behavior. And so it might be possible, given the necessary permissions, to interview them regarding your child's behavior. And so what are the steps of a functional assessment? So during a functional assessment, the team will gather information and they use it to create a plan to help your child behave in more appropriate ways. And so here are the steps the team takes. Step number one, they define the inappropriate behavior. So using vague words to describe the child's behavior can make it harder to gather the best information. And so just saying that your child is disruptive doesn't give enough information. And it could mean different things to different people. And so instead, it's important to describe the behavior in an objective and specific way. So for example, you or a teacher might say that your child rips up and throws work papers and is argumentative when they're asked to show work in math class. So that is specific, and that gives us the behavior to target specific. And so step number 2, collect, compare, and analyze information. So this is a several step process rolled into one. So team members will work together to pull information from your child's records, interviews, questionnaires, and their goal is to answer questions like, when is this behavior happening? Where is it happening? Where is it not happening? How often is the behavior occurring? Who's around when it occurs? What tends to happen right before and right after the behavior? What is the behavior we're deeming acceptable that can be used as a replacement? And so a tool that can help with this is an ABC chart. Okay. And so this chart is a tool. Ooh, turning up outside. So this chart is a tool that is frequently used in this step of the process when we're pulling all that information together. And so A stands for antecedent. So what happens before the child exhibits the undesired behavior? B is for behavior. So what is the action or the reaction to whatever happens? And C is for the consequence. What usually happens after? Okay, so how are they feeling afterwards? And also, what tends to be the consequence of that behavior following the acting out of the behavior? And so your child can help provide this information too. Only they can tell you how they feel in those situations. And so possibly asking them to contribute by way of keeping track of what they're feeling and when could really benefit the team. And so finding creative ways to do that if you're working with a child who may not like to write or who may struggle with writing or reading, but who could verbally express themselves, you might consider getting them some type of recording device or a way for them to express what's happening so that they could be an advocate for themselves in this process. So step number 3, hypothesizing reasons for the behavior. So a hypothesis is defined as a best guess based on the information that you have. And so the team will work together to figure out what your child's behavior is telling them, what the child gets out of ripping up the paper and being disruptive. And then it's their job to figure out what they're trying to escape, avoid, or what they get from the behavior. Okay. And then step 4 is developing the plan. So once the team has developed an idea of the reasons behind the child's inappropriate behavior, they work very closely with the behavior specialist or the psychologist to find ways to see if the hypothesis is correct. And so that means changing something in the environment to see if it changes the behavior typically. And so to do this, they create what's called a BIP. A behavior intervention plan. And so a BIP is a plan that is designed to teach and reward positive behaviors. And this can help prevent and stop problem behavior in school. So for example, it might be helpful to see how your child acts when they're asked to explain the steps of a math problem out loud, but not in front of the whole class. Okay. Or they could show their work on some of the problems, but not all of them. And so suggestions in the plan could include changes in the physical environment, changes to the way information is taught or presented, changes to the child's routine or events that happen before the inappropriate behavior, changes in the consequences for the behavior, teaching different, more appropriate behaviors that serve the same purpose, such as asking for help or taking a break when they get frustrated with the math. And so before putting a plan into place, the team has to make sure that the child understands the expectation. They have to be sure that they can control the inappropriate behavior and is motivated to change. And so this is where information from the comprehensive evaluation could be helpful. Okay. So lastly, what is your role in the functional assessment process? So knowing your child's behavior is causing problems can bring up a lot of feelings. But understand that the team should be trying to work together to find solutions, not to place blame. And so be as forthcoming as you can with what you're witnessing at home. And this is an important piece of the process. And even if that means you have to pull on the caretakers to help look after your child when you're working, even if you have to pull information from them, that's fine. Just try to get a holistic picture of the behaviors that are being demonstrated by your child outside of school. And this is an important piece of the process because it can show similarities and differences between your child at home and at school. And so you could keep a journal, you could use the ABC approach, you could use the recorder on your phone, but try to find a way to, when you can, set a reminder to make note of the behaviors that are being demonstrated by your child outside of school, because it can make it easier to see patterns in the behavior. And so while a functional assessment may not provide an immediate solution to your child's behavior, their behavior struggles, it could be or help to give a more complete picture of where they're struggling and where there are issues. And so then once we know this, you and the school are one step closer to working together to doing what's necessary to make school work for your child. So that is my spiel about functional behavioral assessments. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks. Bye.